The secret to a great personal statement: show, don't tell. Hey, BeMo Nation, welcome to another episode of One Question Podcast. We have absolutely nothing to sell you if you have never watched one of these. These are meant to be pure strategies and content, and we want to make sure that everyone has equal chance of education. And in case you've never watched one of these episodes or you've never listened to one of these podcasts, let me tell you how this works. We have a maximum of 10 minutes each week to tackle one topic in the world of admissions. And once the timer is up, that's it. We're forced to end the episode. So this is going to force us to focus on the meat of the topic at discussion, no fluff. And just to let you know, the way we make these, they're completely unscripted. There's going to be no fancy music, no fancy visuals, no fancy audios, no fancy sound effects, just pure content. And today's topic, as I mentioned to you, is about the personal statement and why it's important to show, but don't tell. So with that said, I'm going to start my timer. There we go. We're counting down from 10 minutes, and I'm going to start introducing myself. I should have probably introduced myself first so we don't lose some time. My name is Behrouz Moemeni. I'm the CEO and founder here at BeMo. I'm joined with two of our senior admission experts, Ronza Nissan and Meng Yang. So why is it important, guys, to show but don't tell? Everybody says, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. What the heck does that even mean? Ronza?
Very important question. I think this is something you have to carry out through your entire application. Anyone could just say meaningless words that just kind of thrown on an application, but they have no impact and they don't resonate. And how can people believe that you've actually kind of gained that skill, gained that insight, unless you actually demonstrate it through a personal lived experience? So what I mean by this is a lot of times people say things like, I want to help those that are underserved. I want to advocate, and they're just throwing all these nice things that anyone else can say, right? But how could you actually demonstrate it is through an experience. So why is it important? Is because this is your opportunity to actually demonstrate a lot of these interpersonal skills that these admissions committees are looking out for, and do so precisely by personalizing it through an experience.
Yeah, just to kind of extend what Ronza was saying, there's kind of two times where you want to do this for sure. One is when you're talking about your motivations for pursuing whatever you're pursuing. So those kinds of questions like, why do you want to pursue medicine? Why do you want to pursue law? If you just say, I want to because, that's not as convincing as if you've actually done something to demonstrate your commitment to that aspect of the field. Same thing with any traits or characteristics that you claim to have that would make you a great candidate or a great professional in that field. You definitely want to demonstrate that through an experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as you guys mentioned, this is for a personal statement for literally any profession. It doesn't matter what it is. This could be medicine, law, pharmacy, dentistry, physician assistant, MBA, graduate school. And this is something that you've probably heard over and over: show, don't tell. Now we're going to give you some examples. So here's a bad example of not following this. I want to become a medical doctor because I'm a great leader. I have great personal skills. I'm an advocate, and I have fantastic attention to detail. And by the way, my management skills are off the chart. Awful. Rejected immediately. I think they read that first sentence and then you go into the reject pile. Now, here's another way to demonstrate this. So how do you show all of these things, leadership, organization, attention to detail, etc.? You actually have to say, it's called a personal statement. So first of all, you got to give a personal story. In that story, if your story highlights specific elements that show all of this. So let's say I'm telling a story about how I did an independent research project, and I've been doing this for the last 4 years, from my first year of undergrad all the way to the final year. And I started at first as a volunteer, and this was a laboratory where they had, multiple graduate students and independent researchers. But when I was starting first, they didn't allow me to touch anything really that was meaningful. Instead, they said, hey, we don't trust you yet. They didn't say that, but this is how it was. First, they only let me wash glassware, and I was there as a volunteer. Then they allowed me to start making some buffers for the researchers. Then they allowed me to start doing some research for certain previously published articles. Then they gave me a chance to help a graduate student with their project. Then they gave me my independent project. Then I had a research topic of my own that I had to research, do a presentation at the end, write a paper, and I got published. This now, if it's crafted properly, it's going to show them dedication to the field, progression over time. It's going to show organizational skills. It's going to show ability to do independent research. It's going to show so many different things. And I just gave one example. I also do not necessarily recommend that you spend an entire personal statement talking about a research project, and unless it's graduate school statement of purpose, for example, or something. But this, I think, sets up the example. But now let's say for different professions, like, you're applying to law school and you want to say you're an advocate. I'm pretty sure you could find an example that you could do that. You're applying to med school. You want to say that you care for health, advancement in medicine, advocating for others, public health. It depends on the angle you're trying to demonstrate. You could find something to explain that. Any other thoughts, Meng or Ronza?
I think one type of experience or one type of claim that goes unsupported in a lot of statements that I read is something about interpersonal skills, right? Something about your relationship with patients, students, whoever it is that you're working with. And a lot of the times people will say, I was a volunteer at this organization. There I learned to listen to this group of people that I worked with and sympathize and have compassion over and then they move on. And I always encourage people, remember that, this is a place where you want to connect emotionally to your audience. And this is a perfect time to be able to do that. If you can actually isolate one particular individual that you connected with and describe to the reader in what way you connected with them and what kind of profound impact.
Exactly.
What kind of profound impact you had on that person. That is a perfect example. You don't need to talk about every single person you ever talked to in your position. If you can just draw on that one connection you made, I would be wowed by that paragraph.
Yeah, agreed. Ronza, anything additional to add?
How much time do we have?
We have under 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So in addition to everything that was said, and it was wonderful, and I completely agree with it, I would say that a lot of students also struggle with thinking that they don't have impactful experiences because, as we mentioned earlier, they think they need that grand experience. I need shadowing, I need articling, I need an internship, but they actually neglect a lot of those interactions and observations that Meng was just mentioning. And they can happen anywhere. They can happen even outside of any sort of organized association. I've had students that just mentioned loosely to me, oh, I put care packages together, for those that were homeless. And I just decided to do this on my own free time. And I said, that is an amazing experience. What did you learn from that? What was the impact from that? But those are just little things that, they disregarded because it wasn't institutionalized for whatever reason. So they didn't think it was something that they should know, but it was impactful in their journey. So I think in this entire process of also considering to show, not tell, you should also consider things that are most impactful that you want to demonstrate, and not necessarily just focusing on, those big moments that I think admissions are going to want to hear about.
100% agree. Any final thoughts? Perfect. You know what? We're ahead of time. We still got 1 minute.
Oh, nice.
And 30 seconds left. That was it for us. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode of One Question Podcast. And I hope you now have a strategy to tackle personal statement and understand exactly what we mean by show, don't tell. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you, go ahead and share it with a friend. Subscribe on whatever social media channel you're watching this. Give it a like. If you have any questions, ask us in the comment section. We'll get back to every question asked as soon as we can. And with that said, thanks so much again for watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon again.